Welcome to Look, Live, and Be Better, where we dive deep into the hottest trends in health, beauty, and plastic surgery. I'm Dr. Anthony Yoon, America's holistic plastic surgeon. Have you questioned whether the skincare products you put on your face have too many chemicals, additives, and preservatives to actually be good for you? Have you wondered if all of these ingredients, with names you can't even pronounce, truly make your skin healthier? And how does what you eat play into how your skin looks? Is there a connection between the health of your gut and the health and appearance of your skin? Well, my next guest has made it her life's mission to educate America on how to achieve clean skin from within. She has identified 6 root causes behind imperfect skin, a significant departure from traditional dermatology. And by focusing on these 6 root causes of skin disorders, she has put together a revolutionary 2-week plan to achieve clean, healthy, and youthful skin. So let's get started. My guest this week is a nationally recognized naturopathic doctor. She's also known as the Spa Doctor and was the first woman licensed as a naturopathic doctor in the state of California. Appointed by former Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger to California's Bureau of Naturopathic Medicine Advisory Council. She's worked with world-renowned spas and sees patients in her private practice in Park City, Utah, with a focus on graceful aging and glowing skin. My guest has been featured on The Doctors, Extra, First for Women, and Mind Body Green, and is the host of the Spa Doctor podcast. She believes the key to healthy skin is inner and outer nourishment with non-toxic ingredients. Her new book, Clean Skin from Within, is on sale now in bookstores all across the country. The Spa Doctor skincare and supplement lines are formulated with natural and organic ingredients designed to help you achieve the skin you've always wanted. I'd like to welcome my friend, the Spa Doctor, Dr. Trevor Cates, to Look, Live, and Be Better. So let's start really on how you became known as the Spa Doctor.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a naturopathic physician, but I was working in several world-renowned spas as the doctor in the spa. So that's how I got to be known as the Spa Doctor. But it's pretty funny how things kind of came around, because when I was working in the spas, I started talking to patients a lot about their skin issues. And it actually takes me back to childhood, because I struggled with skin myself. I had a lot of health and skin issues as a child. I had a lot of allergies, so I had eczema and hives and these little bumps on my face, and nobody really knew what it was. And my parents took me to see a lot of different specialists, dermatologists, and different doctors, and they put me on different medications, and nothing seemed to really help me feel better. And I developed allergic reactions to some of the medications. But my parents kept searching for answers for me, and eventually they found a holistic practitioner that they took me to. And with that kind of approach, it's the one thing that turned my health around. So from a really young age, I decided that was the path that I wanted to take with my health. And it's eventually what led me to go to school to become a naturopathic physician. And then working in spas was just fun for me, because I like the relaxing environment and the idea that people are there to kind of pamper themselves, to take care of themselves. And so that's why, so I got to be known as the Spa Doctor really by working in spas. But it's funny how everything kind of came full circle.
So how does your approach then differ from the traditional approach from a dermatologist or a plastic surgeon like myself? Obviously, you've followed how traditional dermatologists treat skin, and you're looking at it from a whole different perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally respect this, different approaches to skin. But with my approach as a naturopathic physician, I'm looking at skin as our magic mirror that gives us great clues about our overall health. So I'm trying to figure out, what is the skin trying to tell us? What signs is it giving us that something is out of balance within the body? And then address any underlying or root causes behind skin issues by supporting the body's natural ability to heal itself. I really feel like our bodies are wise, and when given the right tools, we can restore our health and restore balance. And a lot of it has to do with our daily lifestyle choices, what we eat, and how we manage stress and things like that. And certainly there are times when prescriptions are necessary, when surgery is necessary, or when it's indicated. But a lot of what we can do comes from our, these lifestyle choices that we make.
Mm-hmm. And I completely agree. I mean, in my book, The Age Fix, there was a chapter about diet as well, and how diet really can create a massive impact on how your skin looks. And people, I think, don't pay as much attention to it as they may think. They say, okay, well, it's genetics, it's sun, and it's smoking. But really, it's what you eat is such a huge part of how your skin looks and how your health of your skin presents itself. So now you've also taken upon yourself in this book, and so your book is called Clean Skin from Within. I mentioned it in the introduction. I've read the book. I think it's a great book. It's very eye-opening, especially for somebody who comes from traditional allopathic medicine. I really found it eye-opening in where you're coming from. Now, in there, you do give your own different skin types, and you have named these skin types after certain patients. Can you explain the skin types, the 5 different kinds, correct?
Yeah. So I got tired of having people describe their skin types as dry, mature, oily, because it doesn't really tell us much about the root cause of what's going on. So I wanted to redefine skin types. And because I see my patients as people, I wanted to give all these types a human name. So I based upon patients of mine, and I kept seeing certain patterns in my patients. So I categorized into 5 groups, and they're Amber, Olivia, Sage, Heath, and Emmett. And each of those has their own collection of root causes that are associated with them. So they're categorized based upon the root causes rather than just what you see on the surface.
Okay, so can you go through each one just briefly so that people can get an idea? So when I look at skin, traditionally we looked at 2 different ways to type skin. So just like you said, there's dry, there's oily, there's combination. Or we look at it in how the skin types, we call them Fitzpatrick, and how they respond to various treatments. So technically lighter skin, versus the darker skin. Can you explain each of the skin types? And that way the people who are listening and watching can identify themselves possibly as one of those.
Yeah, and the reason why you did this, and I have an online skin quiz too that we can share with your audience if you like. But the reason why you did this is when I'm with a patient, I talk to them one-on-one. I'm trying to figure out their root causes, and it's like solving a mystery kind of. So it's really fun to do that. But I obviously can't do that with everybody. And in the book, I wanted a way for people to be able to really identify those root causes and address them. So it's, of course, with the dermatologist is looking at someone's skin and says it's dry, of course that plays a role, and that's important to know. But so like an amber type tends to have sensitivity to the sun, has hyperpigmentation or uneven skin tone. But one of the big root causes with amber types has to do with oxidative damage, and that they seem to be particularly prone to that. So I think it's important to be aware of that, because they also might be more predisposed to skin cancer or other types of cancers. So it's really important to address the root cause of that. So that's just an example of one of the root causes for the amber type. Olivia types tend to have more of the oily or more acne prone skin. They tend to have more, the clogged pores and blackheads, whiteheads, those kinds of things. And so with Olivia types, some of that can be related to hormone imbalances. Not all Olivia types. There's different root causes there, but the ones that I've really categorized with Olivia, there can be certain hormonal types. And so when people take the quiz, figure out if Olivia is their primary type, because there might be somebody that breaks out a little bit, but that's not their primary type. So addressing hormone imbalances could be a big part of that, whether it's sex hormones or maybe it's more cortisol related. So that's another one. Heath types tend to be more inflamed, and they'll have inflamed skin, dry skin, irritated skin. They might have rosacea, those kinds of things. So it shows that there's a lot of inflammation as one of their primary root causes. So we want to address that internal inflammation. I call it skinflammation when internal inflammation shows up on our skin. So that's with Heath. And so then we have the Sage skin type. type. And sage skin types tend to be aging more rapidly than other people their age. Now, I don't think that aging is such, the worst thing in the world. We're all getting older. We can't stop the clock, right?
Yeah.
Smile lines and a little bit of wrinkles here and there. It's okay, but none of us want to look older than we are, right? I mean, you look super young. I don't know how old you are, but you look super young. But, there are certain things that we can do. So for the sage skin types, we certainly want to do things to help address the root causes too, that like collagen breakdown and things that speed that up. So we want to address those root causes too. And then the last skin type is IMIT. And IMIT tends to have things like eczema, psoriasis, these chronic inflammatory skin issues. One of their big issues, underlying causes, has to do with the immune system. So imbalances with the immune system, and that's really the root cause. So it might be, the psoriasis, they might have an autoimmune condition, so their immune system's attacking itself, or they might have, eczema or something along those lines. So what we really want to do is address balancing the immune system. So that's a really quick run through on just kind of highlighting one of the root causes with each one of those.
And obviously in your book, you go into much more detail. So if you're listening today or you're watching today and you say, wow, I'm kind of a sage or I'm an Emmett, one of the goals of the book is to help those people who say, look, I'm an Emmett and I've been treated for years by my dermatologist, and we're covering the symptoms sometimes, but that root cause, the cause of why these symptoms are appearing, we've never been able to treat. And I think that's what I find fascinating about naturopathic medicine is you're really going after the cause of why somebody has an illness, not necessarily just treating the symptoms to get them feeling better, but how do we actually deal with what's the cause of it? And you believe that a lot of this comes actually from the gut, correct?
Yeah, there is a lot of gut issues. I talk about 6 root causes and being related to skin, and microbiome is a big one. And part of that microbiome is the gut microbiome, but also our skin microbiome. And there's a great connection between the two. So, I mean, more from the inside out. So the gut microbiome and what's happening with that balance of microorganisms that live in and protect our digestive system really shows up on our skin because it impacts our skin microbiome, because our skin has its own little flora, actually big flora of microorganisms that really help it from breaking out in acne, eczema, or aging prematurely. So when we help get that gut microbiome in balance, then it can help the skin. Also, what we put on our skin is important. It plays a role. But I personally believe that 80% of skin issues has more to do with what's going on inside, internally, and that 20% is what we actually put on our skin. So, because I think that they're both important, but I do, that's why I wrote the book, Clean Skin from Within, because I feel like there's a lot of it that comes from within.
So are there certain foods that you, from the beginning, let's say somebody has an inflammatory type of a skin disorder, let's say they've got chronic acne, are there certain foods that you find really tend to cause bad reactions in their skin almost uniformly?
Yeah, absolutely. There are certain top foods that are particularly bad for skin, and I have people eliminate them. What I talk about in my book is how to, for 2 weeks, eliminate those foods and replace them with foods that are actually better for our skin, that foods that we can eat, because I don't want to just tell people to take things out. I want to tell them things that they can do to encourage healthy skin as well. So one of the big foods that's not good for our skin, kind of universally, is sugar. Yeah. And that probably doesn't surprise you or anybody else listening, because we know sugar is not particularly good for our body. But when it comes to skin, and you mentioned acne, one of the things that happens is when people eat a lot of sugar, it increases our blood sugar. Then we have an increase in insulin. Exactly. And the increased insulin will then trigger excess sebum production and androgen activity, which are 2 of the big things that cause acne breakouts, right? So that's one of the big things with acne. And then also with the aging process, when we eat too much sugar, it causes glycation issues. So glucose will bind to proteins in our body and bind to collagen in our skin, make it more rigid and less elastic. So then that makes it rapidly the wrinkles, sagging skin. So certainly, I mean, there are we could keep going on with sugar, right? The way it affects the immune system. So for like an IMIT type, that's going to be particularly bad and make those kinds of skin issues worse.
Yeah, I think people think, well, I'm eating sugar. maybe I gain weight from it, but they don't realize that that can actually increase sebum production and inflammation and cause acne. They think, well, wouldn't eating fat cause acne because it's greasy food? Well, that's technically not the case. And there's so many good fats out there that actually eating fat can actually be good for your skin if you're choosing the right ones. And so I think it's very important for people to realize that that there is so much, just like you said, of the underlying diet that can make a huge impact. What do you feel about dairy?
Dairy, dairy is one of the big trigger foods for people, and it's not necessarily an issue for everyone, especially if people are choosing organic and like grass-fed butter and things like that. But for quite a few people that have skin issues, it does tend to be one of the big trigger foods. So that's why it's one of the foods that I tell people to eliminate in the 2 weeks to really determine if it is one of your trigger foods. And then explain to people at the end of the 2 weeks how to gradually reintroduce it to see if it is one of your problem foods. But, we certainly, the research shows that skim milk in particular is a trigger for acne. So we know that there's definitely some reasoning behind why dairy would be a problem. It's a common food allergen, a common thing for people to be intolerant to. A lot of people have problems digesting it because of the lactose, the milk sugar that's in there. We might have some of the similar kind of glycation issues if people are consuming a lot of dairy products. And also just the fact that it comes from a lactating mammal means it's going to have some hormones in it. And hormonal imbalance is one of the big root causes of a lot of skin issues. And so that can really throw off hormones and then trigger skin problems.
Well, and people think that milk is the perfect food. Well, technically it is the perfect food if you're a small growing calf, which we are. So I think that's what I mean. If you're a baby and you're drinking, human mother's milk from a human, then that's a different story. But obviously, this isn't the case. So So in your book, I really found it interesting because it's just 2 weeks is all you ask people. So you say, look, give me 2 weeks of your life. If you've got skin problems, you want to clean your skin from within, and you give 4 points to it. Can you give those points out for our audience? Obviously, we can't go into too much detail with it. They need to get that from the book. But what are the 4 points that you focus on in this great 2 week regimen? I mean, normally people say, give me 6 weeks. I tell patients, give me 6 to 8 weeks when we put you on products for us to see a good change. And you've got it down to 2.
Yeah. So I've been, I graduated in 2000 from naturopathic medical school, and I've been perfecting this program for a while. And what I found is that 2 weeks is a great amount of time. Everybody's got 2 weeks. It's a great amount of time to press the reset button on your health, right? And so within 2 weeks, people start to see a change, and then that gives them hope that they're moving in the right direction. Sometimes people need to do it longer than 2 weeks, but I find that 2 weeks is the perfect amount of time to start, and people really do see a difference. So what I cover in the 2 week program is a clean plate, it's clean plate, clean slate, clean body, and clean mind. And so the clean plate are the foods that you should be eating. So what should be on your plate? And I give people specifically what they should be eating, what they should be avoiding, and I give them absolutely delicious recipes. I worked with a chef to help me make my recipes even more delicious. I would send them to him, and he would say, "Okay, well, just add a little bit of this," and so it was great to have that. So then the clean slate part has to do with what we put on our skin, because we do want to use clean skincare products. I'm sure you talk to people about some of the chemicals that are out there in personal care products and how that can disrupt our hormones. And some ingredients are even carcinogenic, which is crazy, especially when there are natural alternatives. So I talk about those natural alternatives. I actually give do-it-yourself skincare recipes. I know that you like doing some of that too. I've seen your PBS special. So, and then there's clean body, because what's going on with our body, with the toxins in our environment that our body's exposed to, are also important because that impacts our skin. And so I tell people how to reduce toxins in the environment, how to support liver and kidney function, and also then go on to clean mind, because there's such a big connection between stress and our emotions and our skin.
Exactly.
And when we're stressed out, it can create skin problems, and when we have skin problems, it makes us stressed stressed out.
Yeah.
So then we get in this vicious cycle. And so I talk about forgiveness exercises and gratitude journaling and meditations and all kinds of great exercises, practical things for people to do.
And I think you're totally on mark with that. I mean, I have patients that see me all the time where they'll say, for the last 2 years, I feel like I've aged 20. And I look in the mirror and I don't look anything like I did just 2 years ago. And typically that revolves around some type of major stressor in their life. So they've spent the last year or two taking care of a sick parent, or they've gotten divorced. And it's true that the stress, people think that stress can cause your hair to fall out, which it does, but it can actually cause you to age prematurely with wrinkles. Once again, it's not just the hair that changes. In, let's say, presidents, you look at former President Barack Obama and how his hair changed, but it's more than that. And you look at him, he does look a lot older than just the 8 years that you would expect. And so stress being a huge part of it. So what do you say then to people who say, look, I'm thinking about using more natural products on my skin. I want to avoid a lot of these ingredients that I can't even pronounce on these bottles, but I'm worried about how potent they are, how effective they are. I have patients ask me all the time, I'd love to whip up a alpha hydroxy acid peel in my kitchen like you've recommended, like I've recommended, but is that going to do the same thing as if I do a chemical peel in the office? And how do you resolve that with your patients?
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a great question. That was what I was getting. I was getting that question a lot when I was working in spas. And I would tell my patients, so you need to switch over to more natural products. And they would kind of resist a little bit. I would be surprised. And then I would ask, so I went and asked some of my dermatologists and esthetician friends about what products they recommended that were natural. And they said, well, unfortunately, you're going to have to choose between natural or effective. And I really didn't like that answer. So that's when I started doing research on skincare products. And that's what led me to create my own skincare line, because I felt like a lot of the so-called natural products out there, some of them weren't even as natural as they claimed. And then also they just weren't creating the kind of skin microbiome, the skin pH that the skin needs to be healthy and flourishing. So that's why I spent all this time in creating my own with the Spa Doctor's Daily Essentials. And then I think that the do-it-yourself skincare, I think, is a great place, especially for people on a budget, and it's actually kind of fun to do. I spent this past weekend, I took a day with my daughter. We even did a Facebook Live around it in the kitchen, whipping things up and putting them on each other. And it's a great thing to do, knowing that you're using clean products and they can be effective. Now, they're not going to be in the same concentrations as you would in a product that's made in a lab. It's just, it's not going to be quite the same, but you're not going to be having to worry about the harmful ingredients, and you will get some benefits. Using things like yogurt, it has enzymes in there. It's got active cultures in it. So that can provide some benefit for your skin. You do have to make do-it-yourself skincare. One of the downsides on that is you do have to make them fresh. So every few days you're going to have to keep making it. So for the 2 weeks, I think it's certainly easy enough for people to do, but doing it long-term, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to create a natural skincare line, so that it would be something that people could continue to use.
So can you tell me about some of the flagship products in your line, what they're based off of and that type of thing? Because I know in your book you do describe do-it-yourself. There's lots of recipes of do-it-yourself products and stuff, but you actually don't push your own skincare line in it, which I found great, because there are so many dermatologists who have books, and it's all about buy this book so that you can buy my products, and my products are the best. But I really found your book refreshing, and that was one thing I wrote with mine, was I didn't want to put my products in it because it's not just an infomercial about my products. Can you tell me then, because I don't know a lot about your skincare products, I'm fascinated to hear about it. What are some of the flagship products, and what do they have in them that work so well for your patients?
Yeah, absolutely. So I decided to keep it simple with my skincare line. It's just 4 steps. And so I have a cleanser, serum, moisturizer, and what we call our Glow Boost, which is an oil blend. And I find that it's so overwhelming for people out there that they don't know there are all these different products and for different skin types and different things. What I find is really important with skincare products is being in the right pH range, because our skin does need to have that mildly acidic environment, and our products need to support that. And what I was finding is a lot of natural products weren't supporting that. And even some of the more synthetic ones, they would have a high pH, which then will disrupt the pH of the skin, which in turn then causes us to break out and age more rapidly. So we definitely want to be in that good pH. So all the first three of my products, steps 1, 2, and 3, have that mild acidity. The fourth step with the oils don't have an acidic base, but adding that on as a finishing touch certainly doesn't disrupt the pH of the skin. It just helps nourish it. And I also wanted to make sure that it wasn't just clean, but it also had natural actives. So all of the ingredients came from a very potent source. So like we sourced the best CoQ10, for example, and resveratrol and turmeric. Yep. But with turmeric, it's kind of tricky because it's bright yellow. So we had to find a form of it. Yeah, it stains. So we had to find a form of it that doesn't have that. So you had the colors removed without removing the potent antioxidant and anti-inflammatory benefits. So, I love all 4 steps of my system. I would say our number one seller is our serum, which is the step 2, the antioxidant serum. And when people put that on, they feel this immediate tightening and lifting effect. And so people just absolutely love that, especially, anyone that's, I would say, over 35, maybe you want to have a little bit more lift, right?
So what types of procedures do you recommend then combining, let's say, with your products? So if somebody comes in, they say, okay, I'm a convert. I used to go to plastic surgeon. I've done all these deep chemical peels and microdermabrasion and this and that. What types of procedures do you typically combine with your products, let's say in your spa, or do you recommend to your patients?
Well, I think getting a good facial periodically, I think is great. I don't do vampire facials or PRP facials, but I do think that they could be, I have someone locally that I'll refer to because I think that's a great thing for people with, especially for acne scarring, people that no longer have the acne, we've gotten rid of the acne, it's no longer active, but they've got some of the pitting, the scarring, that can be great for that. Also for anti-aging, it can be beneficial. So, honestly, I don't really recommend a lot of procedures for people. I think some gentle exfoliation and some nice facials, some hydration, especially, I live in Park City, Utah. Our skin gets really dried out here. So we do need a little extra hydration.
And are there any, you're an expert at watching out for certain ingredients and products. And, in the book, you mentioned a number of them. What are the ones that you feel, if somebody's at the drugstore right now, and let's say they're listening to this podcast on their phone, and they're looking at various moisturizers, is there some ingredients that you can mention just offhand that people should really watch out for? And what are those?
I would say one of them that's super simple to look for, which might surprise people, is fragrance. And fragrance is in so many products. And if you start thinking of not just your skincare products, but your shampoo, conditioner, deodorant, body lotions, and oh my gosh, so you name it, there's just like fragrance in just about everything that we use on our body. But unfortunately, fragrance, when manufacturers put fragrance on the label, it's an opportunity to hide a lot of ingredients that don't have to be put on the label. And for example, one of those ingredients is diethyl phthalate, and there actually may be other phthalates. And phthalates are plasticizing agents. They're known hormone disrupting chemicals. And they do show up in human samples and urine. And so we know that our bodies were getting absorbed by in our personal care products, and that they do have these hormone disrupting effects. So I would say try and go for fragrance free or ones that are scented with essential oils instead.
And 2 other ones I know that you mentioned are the parabens being bad for you as well. And what was the other one I was thinking of? Oh, I think I'm blanking out.
Another big one are formaldehyde releasers.
Yes, okay.
But the problem with those it doesn't say formaldehyde or formaldehyde releasers on the label.
Wait a minute here. That's an embalming liquid.
I know. So I would say in my book, I list all of the different names that it can be called. An example is DMDM hydantoin, which of course that says nothing about formaldehyde. And you might just look at it and kind of glance over and say, oh, that must be some other, little thing that they need to add in there. But it's actually formaldehyde releaser. So when you put products containing this group of chemicals onto the skin, it releases formaldehyde into the air around you. So, and we know that formaldehyde is a carcinogen, and actually it's most toxic when inhaled. And some of it will also be absorbed through the skin. So that's another one I tell people to be really careful with. You mentioned parabens. Really, people will look for paraben at the end of the word. It might say methylparaben, butylparaben, propyl. Yeah. There are a lot of different ones, but there are some concerns about hormone disrupting effects with those, and they've been detected in breast tumor tissues and other tissues in the human body.
And the other one actually that came to mind I wanted to mention is oxybenzone. And one of the things that I tell my patients, and I put in the book as well as when I do talks, is to avoid oxybenzone, especially in our children. Now, people will say, well, there are no studies that prove that, let's say, oxybenzone is a hormone disruptor and will cause our children to go into puberty more quickly or something like that. But there's no point in using it if you have some viable alternatives. And I think that even though there will be studies that say that certain of these ingredients may not be dangerous in the amounts that they're used, we have to also consider the amount that we're exposed to. And it's like there's no study that looks at all of the things put together and how that can affect us as we get older, and especially as children, as they get older and they develop. What are your thoughts with oxybenzone? Do you recommend that your patients avoid that? And how would they put sunblock on their face? Because the alternative is zinc oxide or titanium dioxide, which is usually quite thick.
Yeah. And so, first I want to say that I totally agree with your saying about we're not just exposed in one place to toxins. We're exposed to them in our air, water, food, as well as our personal care products. And these ingredients have been studied somewhat in isolation, some of them in lab animals. But there's also concerns, in addition to the research that we do have, because they do know that oxybenzone can have hormone disrupting effects in animals. But we're also concerned about the combination of these and what they do in our bodies. And we are now have more exposure to toxins than ever in history, because the toxins that have been banned are now still existing in our environment and getting into our food and our water supply. They're traveling over from other countries in clouds and raining down when it rains. And then we have new chemicals that are being developed. And so our children in particular, their bodies, their livers are smaller, their lungs are smaller, their organs are smaller, and they're developing really rapidly. And so it's super important to, particularly with our kids, to choose as many clean products as possible. And, I always feel like, as a naturopathic physician over the past, so I graduated in 17 years ago, and it was in school for 4 years. And over the time, it's funny, when I was in school, I felt like there was so much of this makes sense that we should do this. And now the research is starting to come out to support what we've been saying for years. So I always tell my patients, do we have to wait until the research shows that, or can we be more proactive and forward thinking when it makes sense that this is something that we should do? So that's kind of what I encourage people to do. And I feel like we have enough information about ingredients like oxybenzone that it's better to look for alternatives. So zinc oxide is my favorite alternative. And the good news about zinc oxide is the technology's gotten better. So you can use micronized zinc, nanosized zinc. You just want to avoid the nanosized particles in the powders and sprays, because if you breathe those in, they can get trapped in the lungs.
And that's the same thing I tell with patients' families. There's so many people I see at the beach who have this sun spray, the spray that they spray onto their children, and there's this just plume, this waft of sunscreen, of oxybenzone that the kids then breathe into their lungs. And so worst thing I tell them are these sprays. And if you're going to use a spray, then spray it into your hand, cup your hand, spray it in your hand, and then wipe it on your children if you wanted to use that spray. This is, you've got your new book out. I'm sure you're really excited about it. And this is one of many shows I'm sure that you're doing. So Dr. Trevor Cates' new book is Clean Skin from Within. I've read the book. I think it's very eye-opening, especially if you're interested in dermatology, if you're interested in anti-aging, if you're just interested in having healthy skin. It's definitely worth the read. If you go to Dr. Cates' website, it's thespadoctor.com, thespadr.com/Dr. Yoon. There's actually a special gift here, and I couldn't believe that you were doing this, but if you go there, thespadoctor.com/Dr. Yoon, you can actually get her book for free. All you do is pay shipping and handling, and they will send it to you, which is an amazing deal. And you throw in some bonuses as well.
Yeah.
Just for people who listen to the podcasts and who support you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to get this book into the hands of more people. And that's really why I wrote the book, because I knew I couldn't sit down with everybody, and I want to get this out to more people. So I'm happy to give this to your audience for free, and just pay, if they just pay the shipping and handling for us to get it to them. And then I'm also going to throw in a couple of bonuses. One is my best and worst foods for skin cheat sheet. So it's the 5 best foods, the 5 worst foods for skin, because I want you to go ahead and get started with incorporating these foods and really understanding we want to avoid certain foods and instead eat certain foods. And then also I have a video series of 10 videos. I talk about do-it-yourself skincare. I talk about skincare practices, a daily skincare routine, and all kinds of great information in the video series. So some extra bonuses just to help people get even more out of the book and to have something until it arrives.
So it's thespadoctor.com/Dr. Yoon. So Trevor, I ask everybody who comes on the show one question at the end. So the question is if you could give one piece of advice to our listeners and our viewers today about how they can make their life look, live, and be better, what would that piece of advice be?
Well, it's hard to boil it down to one, but if I had to pick only one thing, I would say starting your day with a really healthy smoothie, because I feel so much of healthy skin comes from within. If we start our day right, then we're going to get a great kickstart for the day. So I like one of my favorites, just super, super easy, just a few ingredients, unsweetened coconut milk, a handful of frozen berries, a handful of greens, pick your favorite ones, make sure they're organic, and either a really great protein powder. I have my own pea protein, but also you could do like a handful of soaked almonds that have been soaked overnight so they're soft and easy to blend, and then just whip that up, and voila, you got your glowing skin from within smoothie first thing in the morning.
That sounds great. So her website is thespadoctor.com/Dr. Yoon. Get Clean Skin from Within. You can get it for free if you go to that website. Check it out. This is Dr. Trevor Cates. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks. It's great to be here with you.
Thank you. So this is Look, Live, and Be Better. I'm Dr. Anthony Yoon, America's holistic plastic surgeon. We'll see you next week for another great show. Do you want to look 10 years younger without having surgery? Well, my best-selling book, The Age Fix, will tell you how. I spent the past 17 years learning the secrets to turning back the clock, and have written all the best of these secrets in this book. This includes the Age Fix diet, simple changes to what you eat that can make a huge difference in your appearance. I'll share with you a simple skincare routine to keep aging and wrinkles at bay. And I'll share with you the best secrets to treat every single beauty and aging problem there is, from age spots to wrinkles, saggy skin to bad breath, saddlebags to hair loss. And almost all of these can be effectively treated without surgery. So are you ready to turn back the clock and kick Father Time's backside? If so, check out The Age Fix. Now, if you purchase it on my website, dryoon.com, you'll get over $10 off the cover price, free shipping, and you'll receive several free gifts, including a bonus chapter that you can only get by purchasing the book there. Thank you for making The Age Fix such a huge success.